As a lawyer and a big company guy, I'm really excited and more than a little bit surprised to be talking about design today. But I'm a chief innovation officer. There's a lot of opinions about what that means and what we do. And I've been in several change-oriented roles in my career in very large companies. So what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today is, what is this all about? And it's interesting, there are a lot of opinions out there among the management gurus about what a chief innovation officer should or shouldn't do. I came upon Alessandro's article a few years ago, and wow, that's an important job to manage the tension between those that are running the business today and have that killer instinct to those that want to transform and grow the business for tomorrow. Felt pretty good. But George had a different premise. George's premise was not so good, but I thanked him. I thought, boy, it's really interesting. But it does sort of engender and evidence the debate that many are having. But to see where the truth is, I thought maybe we should talk about the work I do every day. Humana is a company that services customers who are old, who have aged, but who continue to have the passion. We connect to that passion of our members by declaring a bold goal that we will help improve their health in the communities where we serve them 20% by 2020. Rooted in that goal is the acknowledgement that the healthcare industry is full of change, and Humana, as an insurance company, needs to go through a radical transformation to become a healthcare services company. My job is to work with my colleagues and across a group of 55,000 engaged associates to see if we just can't make that happen to deliver that goal. So to do that, I design conversations that help companies grow. And the key word there is design. I first came across design during my time at Target, where I had a wonderful decade of work, where I had the opportunity to work with Philippe Starck and Yves Behar and Michael Graves to look at beauty and elegance and bring function to everyday products, and to see the value of democratizing that design and making it accessible to all. I spent some time at Citi trying to figure out how can you actually redesign the consumer banking experience to create wonderful moments of delight for consumers, to put the consumer on the same side as the bank. Work that is very prevalent in Asia and I think has not yet made its way to the US. But at Humana, as you can imagine, the healthcare challenges are really profound. I don't think any one of us wakes up today or any day and says, boy, navigating our healthcare system is easy, or boy, that was a wonderful, delightful experience I just had. But we know we need that. We know the industry needs it. And we know all of us as citizens need to figure out how to do this better and more efficiently. But across each of these companies, across the numerous teams that I've led, I've just been continually struck with how hard change is in big companies. How hard it is to align thousands of people to change. But more importantly, I became fascinated with the conversations that were happening in the perennial meetings of companies. There are many sitcoms that bring to light sometimes the banality of conversations, but I was struck by the fact that many of the conversations that are happening in big companies are unsatisfying. Many of the conversations that are happening in big companies are unproductive. As a senior leader, I talk to my colleagues in different companies and different industries, and we hear all about frustrated middle management that is stuck in metrics and unable to grow and move fast enough to meet the needs of their customers. In every industry, we see frontline employees, those that are closest to the customers, who lack empowerment and somehow feel disengaged. And across many companies, senior leaders seem unable or unwilling to work across silos to get things done. And those frustrating conversations add up. 27 million people in America work in Fortune 500 companies. That's around 1 of 6 of the working population. And so people talk about, boy, I cannot figure out how to untap the potential of my business. I respond with, Well, let's start by talking about how we untap the potential of your people. A few years ago, I was in Boston, and I visited this data center at MIT. I had an epiphany of sorts. I walked in and I saw so many things happening in a fluid environment. I saw an environment with spaces designed that curated and created the opportunity to work together, to work alone, to think deeply or convene in courageous thought. And I said to myself, what if I could design conversations as well as Frank Gehry could design buildings? Wouldn't that be amazing to support the companies I work for and the teams I work with? So it became this question: what would it be like if we brought amazing design to everyday conversation? This is not novel thinking. Conversation is at the root. It's fluid between our interactions as social people. But if you think about it, the construct in corporations is largely about meetings. And those meetings are one-to-one, one-to-many. As managers and leaders, we somehow view those conversations differently than we view them in a human context outside of work. So I started to think a little bit about these conversations, but more I learned from mates and colleagues and designers and thinkers. And I started to develop for myself a frame that I use as my own practical design approach. And I use it every day, in every conversation. So there are 4 conversations that I believe are incredibly helpful in helping people be their best. The first are around conversations for empathy and building trust. The second are conversations for dreaming and the future. The third is conversations for creating and taking action. And the fourth are conversations for completion, for celebration, for learning, and for loving life. Now, I start my day every day with these 4 conversations in mind, and I have them each independent of each other. But I wanted to walk through them and unpack them a little bit and share how I think about that. As an innovator and a transformational change guy, I think we all know, and in this room knows, that fundamentally empathy is at the heart of all innovation. The deep listening, the deep caring, allows us to understand the unmet needs of the people we serve. And around those unmet needs, we can design new business models, we can design great customer experiences. Empathy is about connecting to the world and the customer in a dramatically different way. But in the context of conversations, empathy is rooted in respect, undividedness, presence, and the suspension of judgment. It's about being present in the moment and giving your full attention. You know, for me, empathy is the feeling that you all have my attention. I start on my staff meetings every week with the question, what's your weather forecast? Because we're not always sunny, and we need to know how, as a team, we're showing up together. And we do that because in innovation, it requires a tremendous amount of emotion. The energy required to innovate requires us to pull deeply into some places where we don't want to go. We talk about as a team that our job is to maximize love and minimize fear. Now, what is it about large companies that creates fear? I would argue the conversation most important for us to have is to identify that a lot of us are fearful of not knowing. Big companies don't honor uncertainty. Metrics are made to be met. But if we, in empathetic conversations, dig into the fear, as companies, we begin to think about and deprogram and get to the root of the anxiety. Because change in large corporation includes risks. And innovation and transformation in companies includes going to places that are just around the corner. It includes going to the unknown. So in empathetic conversations, I listen very hard, and I stay in and lean in. Oftentimes, these conversations are emotional and unlock anxiety and tears. But the thing about empathetic conversations is you stay with them long enough until you know they're complete. And you always know when empathetic conversations are complete. The second thing I think about in the 4 conversations I need to have every day are conversations around dreaming. We all dream. I know many of us in this room are here in part to dream. I love to dream. But working in a big company can make it hard sometimes to dream. But I think actually that's starting to change. I think companies are starting to understand that in order to be relevant to their customers and be relevant to their associates, they actually need to have a higher purpose. Great brands, great companies, all are striving for an ambition greater than themselves. So dreaming conversations are about connecting the work every day to that higher purpose where there is one, and where there isn't, ensuring that we can consider what it should be. Boy, to achieve that dream of 20% by 2020 is important. But I remember when I was considering 2 years ago moving from Silicon Valley to Louisville, Kentucky, moving out of fintech and venture capital into a role in a large healthcare company ready to go and transform. I flew in and I met my boss, Bruce Broussard, the CEO. And at dinner, I asked him, Bruce, why did you join the company? And we had a conversation about the dream. The dream, which is Humana's dream, about the dream of lifelong well-being. And I felt privileged and honored, interestingly, to have that conversation because I had a moment to decide whether or not I wanted to join a company whose business model was rooted in doing good things for people, improving the health of the people we serve. That dream of lifelong well-being is the single largest thing that keeps our associates engaged in the work they do. But we get a series of conversations to get to a goal, a dream with a deadline. At Humana, this goal of 20% by 2020 is a purposeful reminder of why we get up every day. It's a purposeful stretch of our ambition. It is core to our business model and it's core to our strategy, but it allows us as leaders to make that purpose relevant in the work we do. Most importantly, it means that Mary, who I've met and is a wonderful lady, can always be at the center of our efforts. The third conversation I want to talk to you about is creating. The first part of creating is generative. This is about the things that we love to do as we start to build. When conversations are generative, typically they have words like, what if? How might we? Let's build on that. What did you notice? I'd posit that most large companies believe that those conversations need to be constrained and or limited to design jams, idea generation sessions, or sessions where there's intent around design. Those are really important. But I think my job in these conversations every day is to ensure that there's generative thinking happening every day. One of the best conversations I've been a part of recently was a conversation about Mary, who you saw. She's just over 80 and lives in Florida. Mary's had a great life. She's awesome. She loves life. And she doesn't define her life by her chronic conditions, but she's suffering from later stage congestive heart failure, and it's hard for Mary to get along. Puzzles and Scrabble occupy her time. And we actually said to Mary, what would it be like for us to be able to help you manage your health? Why don't we bring together a scale and connect it to the cloud? And then why don't we call you and interact with you if some things are going awry? Because boy, Mary may need that real-time feedback on her health. And she said, great, she loved it. And I went and I met with Mary, with the team, and Mary said to us, I love Humana and I love what you're doing for me. And the team immediately went to with me, you love the technology. Well, I love my scale. You love the way it's making your life easier. Well, I love that too. But what Mary told us she loved the most was the fact that every day she could or she would receive a call. One of the few calls in or out that Mary had a month. So we started with the scale, but through this generative conversation and thinking, we ended up realizing that for Mary, what we're solving for is loneliness. Those are the types of insights that generative conversations get us to. The discipline of innovation, the discipline of change includes all sorts of things like risk management and portfolio of investments and building capabilities and trade-offs and strategy. But the fact of the matter is, if companies that are going through change need to be having conversations with people, and I need to be having conversations with people that allow changes to be brought forward in bite-sized chunks. What do we need to learn to get to the next decision? How can we react based on that decision in order to reframe the work we're doing. You see, inherently, the same thing that drives fear in the corporations, it makes this very hard. We know, entrepreneurs know, designers know that this is not a linear progress. This is not a linear journey. If ideas work, that's phenomenal. We progress along the plan, and we feel really good. If ideas don't work, have we progressed along the plan? Do we feel good? Guess what? We have progressed. People that are having empathetic and creative conversations will create oxygen at that moment to make sure that progress is sustained by making sure that we value the learnings just as much as the action, and making sure that uncertainty and optionality is something that's easy to talk about. I think these conversations fundamentally have to shift to the conversations where what are the underlying assumptions then that you're thinking about or you're concerned about? What is the basis of that opinion? What's the insight you get from your customer that's making you think that way? Creative conversations need to go there. And I think it requires a tremendous amount of energy and effort from leaders to do that. But they have to happen every day. The fourth conversation that I feel is very important is about completion. The fact of the matter is, the journey is never done. We can be consumed by the things that we are passionate about or the places we work. But finding completion in conversation is important because it allows us to celebrate progress. It allows us to channel, to reflect, to listen, to learn, and to examine what we can or can't or maybe could have done better. Getting the job done can be tough work emotionally. So completion conversations always need to balance the project with the importance of completing it personally and getting emotionally whole and checking in on that level. 4 conversations every day. I used to believe my calendar looked like this. Not a great thing. But now I see my day as this, a series of conversations. Every day with discipline, I look at my schedule and I ask myself, what are the conversations we're going to have today? How can I prepare in order to have that right conversation? And how do I know that that conversation will be successful? Now, with my management team, we're having conversations about strategy and alignment of resource and efforts against today and tomorrow. You know, with my team, we talk about how can we enroll hundreds and thousands in this transformation effort. How can we accelerate the building of new healthcare experiences for our customers? How can we get to capabilities faster by partnering with startups and working and incubating and going through sprints to bring those home? You know, with our frontline leaders and our customers, I listen closely in conversations for inspiration and for understanding. I think those oftentimes are the root of the best stories. So let's go all the way back to this disagreement about the role of chief innovation officers. You know what? I think it's a valid question. Should I be a chief innovation officer? Am I stymieing innovation? Or am I protecting that healthy tension and that sometimes importantly difficult tension that exists between changing a company for tomorrow and running it well today? I'd offer a third view that the proper role of a chief innovation officer is a conversation designer, and that for companies to grow and change, they have to build a purposeful bias towards purposeful conversations. Chief innovation officers need to do this. Chief executive officers need to do this. Leaders of teams need to do this. Because at the end of the day, as chief conversation officers, we are building empathy with our teams and trust. We're providing the foundation and courage and help and assistance to build and create. We're connecting that to a higher order purpose, which keeps people actually interested in sticking around and doing good work. These are my 4 conversations that I have, and I hope it's been helpful for you to grab a few of those. This is remarkably a one-sided conversation, by the way. So I look forward to making it a dialogue throughout the next couple of days, and in the meantime, all the best with your conversations. Thank you.